Good morning, word campers, and welcome to day two. I am very pleased to be introducing you today to three of the most genuine and caring people I know in the WordPress community. We're going to share some of their stories today, and I'm going to start off by letting each of them introduce themselves and maybe get into a little bit about how they started with WordPress.
Hi, everybody. My name's Andrea Middleton, and I'm joining you here from Portland, Oregon. I'm a WordPress blogger and community organizer. I work for Automatic, and I've been using WordPress for since about 2007, and have been supporting WordPress community organizers since about 2011. And next up for the introductions is Michelle Frechette.
Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, wherever you're watching from. I'm Michelle Frechette, as Andrea said, and I am the head of customer success for GiveWP. I am an organizer for WordCamp US, WordCamp Rochester. I help out sometimes with other WordCamps, and I'm the podcast barista at WP Coffee Talk. Oh, and next is Joe. How could I forget? Joe, it's up to you.
Oh, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Hello, world. My name is Joe Simpson. I'm here in Castaic, California, in the Santa Clarita Valley, just north of Los Angeles. I've been involved in WordPress since around 2010. I have an interesting story. When our lead developer and CSS goddess both left our company, like most folks, I inherited a WordPress site. And it had the Headway theme framework for those that remember way back. And ever since then, it's been history. So I'm glad to be here and glad to welcome the community into WordCamp Kent.
Awesome. So let's start off with if you all want to share how you got involved in the community specifically. We kind of glossed over that a little bit.
Sure, I'll start. I actually was recruited by a woman named Jen Milo, who was leading Core at the time back in 2010, 2011, and it also was responsible for creating the WordCamp program as we know it today. And so I was hired to implement that program and execute it. I'd been using WordPress for a long time, but had no connection with the community up until then. And so I really just dove in and have been working with community organizers ever since. And it's been a real gift. I had kind of a background in HR, a background in marketing, a background in writing, and kind of a background in sales, and like all of that combined to inform the work that I've done here with communities. And a background as a teacher. And so all of that kind of came together and this job has really asked a lot of all of those skills. So that's been really fun. How about you, Michelle? How did you get started?
So I was part of the the WordPress meetup here in Rochester. I'd attended a lot, but the person that was running it was a guy who was so like busy with his life that it would be like, hey, everybody okay to have a meetup next Tuesday? It's like, wait, you can't run the world like that. He's like, and then he just got so busy. He's like, does anybody else want to take over running this? I'm like, please, I would love to organize this. So like every third Monday at 6:30, here are the topics for the next year, and get it all going that way. And so we got kind of organized. And then I love to tease Andrea about this because I was at WordCamp US 2015 and telling somebody that I was running the meetup, and they said, are you an official meetup? And I'm like, I don't know what does that mean. They're like, go talk to Andrea Middleton. So I went and talked to Andrea Middleton. Within about 5 minutes, we were an official meetup. I said, yeah, someday we'd like to have a WordCamp. She said, why someday? Why not now? And by the end of that year, she had ushered me into being a WordCamp organizer. And as they say, the rest is history. How about you, Joe?
Oh, that's amazing. That's a great story. As I mentioned earlier, I got into WordPress initially way back in 2010. I work at Metro in Los Angeles, a large transportation company. But my recent run and how I got involved in the community, unfortunately, I had a heart event in 2017, 100% blocked arteries. And during a leave of absence, during a 90-day period, I went to my first WordPress meetup, my first official WordPress meetup in downtown LA. And Adam Silver and Steve Harvey, two of my favorite people, were there, and they had mentioned WordCamp Los Angeles and that they needed volunteers. And I decided during that 90-day period, I was going to do only things that I loved. And when I got into WordPress way back in 2010, my initial contact with the community had such an impact on me that one of the things that I knew I wanted to get back into during that 90-day period was WordPress. So I went to like 18 meetups, and that was sort of my entrance into it. And I can thank Adam and Steve. It was incredible. So that's how it started for me.
That's called a deep dive, Joe.
Yeah,
You did a
I'll
deep
say.
dive.
Yeah, and for those that know me, I'm kind of a WordPress fanatic, and fanatic in the word of crazy fanatic. So I love WordPress.
We know. We've seen it. We know. We love it.
Yeah.
You're not alone.
So, actually, do you want to share a little bit about your experience that you just had with Santa Clarita for those that don't already know?
Oh, sure. And at my very first meetup, the very last slide in my slide deck was I wanted to host a WordPress meetup. And so imagine we're a small town north of Los Angeles, a brand new community with lots of folks that had no idea. They knew about WordPress, but they had no idea what WordPress was. And they saw that slide saying, I want to host a WordCamp. And they all looked at me funny. But over the next year and a half, we set about doing it. So I always try to do crazy things because, like I said, once all the barriers went down and I had to restart my entire life, I said, I'm just going to go for what I want to go for. And I was like, I love WordPress so much. I want to bring it to our community. And the incredible thing is that, and actually, I'll leave it to later. I'll turn it over to Andrea and Michelle for their stories. But I could go on forever if you can't tell.
I told Andrea this the other day. So when we did the first WordCamp in Rochester, since I was lead organizer and I could pick whatever day really worked, I was like, let's have it on my birthday, because then I get to spend my birthday with like 140 WordPress friends. It was so cool. Oh, and the after party was kind of like a birthday party. So it was a little...
Did you have a cake?
They did surprise me with a cake, actually. It was very cool. It was so cool. But I mean, maybe it was a little self-serving, but it was also super fun.
I mean, it's as self-serving as the end result of, I think I'll spend my birthday working really hard on creating and overseeing a tech conference for 140 people. I mean, there is that component. I know some people who like to spend their birthdays on the couch.
So, okay, you raise a good point.
just pointing it out.
You know, and you were my WordCamp mentor, and you were like, "Are you sure you want to do that?"
She was sure, folks. She was really sure. The first WordCamp I organized was Portland in 2011. I was 6 months pregnant. And I'm a Portland native, but I had been living in Austin for a while, and I'd moved back to Portland right before then. And so I was working with a city that I knew, but a community that I was somewhat new to, and we were new to each other. But it was a really well-established community, so it was one of those times that gives me a lot of respect for people who come into an established community where like things have already started and there's some momentum, but maybe it's stalled a little bit. And that's not a really easy position to be in, right? Because like other people have set expectations for what community events will be like. And then you come in and you have your own ideas, obviously, because that's what brings anyone into leadership in WordPress is like, either I have a need, like Michelle's story, right? I'm just like, well, I don't know how well I can do this, but I know I can probably bring these things, like being able to give people warning about when the meetup's going to happen. I mean, no shade to anyone. It's hard to manage volunteerism and regular life, as we all know. But and then also when people have a vision, right? And so coming in with some stuff that you want to accomplish on behalf of the community when the community's already up and running can be a really difficult kind of tightrope to walk. But it was a great event, and I mostly accepted that I didn't have to run my feet off because I was in my third trimester. But it was a great event. I still really fondly remember that event.
Awesome. Andrea, I'm sure you've had just stories about camps that have just turned it around or surprised you. Is there any camp that stands out that just blew you out of the water?
Wow, that's a tricky one because like pretty much every one of our community events, the word camps themselves, not the meetups have a little bit like they're lower, they're not as resource intensive, right? And you can kind of set it and you can't forget it, but you can like do it on repeat, right? But like word camps, because they're conferences, require doing a lot more volunteer recruitment. You have to have a pretty broad vision. You have to be able to execute a project over a period of months. And then there's the fundraising aspect, which doesn't come naturally to everyone. And so it's a much more complex project. It's not undoable and it's really fun. And it really gives you the chance to like try stuff. But every WordCamp is a real labor of love. Like it represents hundreds of hours of effort across a group of people. It is fantastic because it really brings a community together. I frequently like to tell community organizers that the point of WordCamp is WordCamp. You want to have a good conference, but like at the same time, kind of the point of WordCamp from an organizational standpoint is it unites your community with a common goal, right? And you represent your community to the world. And so, like the conference is important, the content is important, but also like the way you do everything is important, right? And so like there's so many examples of communities that I can remember who either faced like venue problems, either their venue didn't talk to them, or they lost their venue, or their venue, or like organizational problems, like differences of opinion in the team that required much more work than they anticipated and required a lot more growth many times than people anticipated. And then, fundraising challenges, and then challenges finding the kind of content they were looking for. So almost like every WordCamp is a triumph, I guess is what I'm going here. Like every single WordCamp, like it didn't have to come together, but it did. And so like every time it happens, I just feel so excited for the victory that every organizer has to be feeling on the day, like that feeling of like, we did it. Did we do it? We actually did it. It's happening right now. We made a thing and people are in it. And, like that's just magic every time. So, anyway.
Absolutely.
Right. That actually leads me into something. We have a lot of attendees that this is their first WordCamp, which is a little bizarre for us on this side because this is not exactly how we anticipated our WordCamps would look in 2020. But for those that this is their first experience, they might not even know what a meetup is. So I'm going to turn it over to Michelle if you want to describe a basic meetup.
Sure. So, I mean, a basic meetup today looks a little different than it does normally because everything is online, of course. But usually, for us anyway, in Rochester, we have it's the first Monday of every month. We meet at a local place that's donating their space for us from 6:30 to 8:30 in the evening. We have the first half, we usually have a topic we discuss. And the second half is usually just open questions, answers, talking through problems people have, showing us their websites, asking for help. So it's kind of like a combination of a WordCamp session kind of, and then also an open clinic where we can just discuss anything. And sometimes, I mean, I say hour and hour, sometimes it's 80 minutes and whatever, it kind of blends or bleeds. But what's really, really cool about it is that it isn't just a bunch of people that get together every month like a class. It's actually grows a community. Some of the people in the local WordPress meetup are some of now my best friends. 2 years ago, I had to move. I was moving out of a home, I was getting divorced, and I was moving into an apartment. And I can't lift boxes, I can't move furniture, I can't do that thing. I posted on Facebook that I needed help and that if anybody would come to my house at 5 o'clock on that Tuesday and just help me move some things across town. I thought maybe my brother and a couple friends, from my church might show up. 15 people showed up and 13 of them were from the WordPress meetup. And that's what our community is. Our community is more than, can you help me with code? Our community is more than, can you look at my website? Our community is more than, what's the best hosting solution? Our community is really like, how can I help you with whatever it is that you need? And what do you need? And how can I be there for you? And it really is, and I put this on, out all the time. We're more than open source code. We are an open source community. And to me, that's what it's all about. I went a little bit beyond what is a meetup. Sorry.
That's fine. Joe, is there a pivotal moment
Joe.
or inspiring moment? So a pivotal or inspiring moment for you or someone who kind of got you involved in the community?
Well, sure. I'll share a funny story. I was at WordCamp Los Angeles and I was walking through the break room back to the back where the coffee and the water was. And Alex Vasquez, a leader in the LA community forever, and a guy with great hair, handed me a microphone. And he said, just talk about yourself. And I basically described, did a little bit of my intro. And when I gave him the microphone back, he said, you know what, you should speak at a WordCamp. And little did he know that I was in like a speaking group in the office, like a international speaking group. So I was always used to speaking. And I thought, wow, that's pretty awesome. I'm going to do this. It took me 2.5 years to do it, but I did get on stage. And so that was pivotal in terms of getting in front of people. And it goes back to what Michelle was saying. I think the community is about giving back. So that was something I love to do. And I was like, wow, that was interesting that he asked me. But the funny thing is, and the story I always end with, is that I found out he tells everyone that. But it was very pivotal for me. It meant a lot. And to me, I think the great thing about this community and what I appreciate most is that every step along the way, if I felt like I was dragging or I needed a little confidence, there was somebody there to nurture me. So I don't think you get that anywhere else. So WordPress is incredible in that way. So that's why I'm really a really big fan.
Well, and if I can piggyback on that for a second, like it reminds me, your story about Alex reminds me, and specifically that he tells everyone that. And it reminds me of the fact that like I don't actually remember saying to Michelle, like, why someday? Why not now? But I do that all the time. Like I literally do that all the time. Anytime I'm like, I hear someone say, well, someday we should, I'm like, or now would be good. It's fine now. But like, even though Alex encourages everyone to speak, and even though I encourage everyone to like organize without having to put it off, like it's because it's sincere, right? Like Alex and the whole program really believes that everybody who uses WordPress has something to share in the community. Like everyone should speak. Everyone has a something of value that they can share with the group. And I really believe that like every community, every meetup should have its own conference because it's so empowering for everyone and it gives so many people a chance to grow in leadership and express their voice. And WordPress is all about democratizing publishing, but like if you take that into an event framework, it's about getting everybody onto a platform where they can share their experience, which then makes the software better. It our strong community helps us grow the software, which then gives people voices beyond our community, right? So
absolutely. It also speaks to the inclusivity, right? Because obviously in your position, Andrea, you are an influencer, right? So you influence people by speaking to them every day. You don't remember saying that to me specifically. You say that to a lot of people. But the point is you keep saying it because you never know who the next person you say it to is taking it seriously, getting it up and running, and then they are passing that opportunity on to other people too. And that's kind of what our community is about too.
Yeah. It doesn't always work, right? So you have to be relentless. To make sure. But that's the thing, like, and that's the same thing with the meetup and the WordCamps, right? Of in your positions, Joe and Michelle, as community organizers, and also here in Kent, and in Northeast Ohio, like, the number of seeds you plant is not equal to the number of plants that grow, right? So you got to just keep encouraging people over and over. And if you hear, if you're a person who has heard that a couple times and heard like, hey, if you want to organize, there's always room. Hey, if you want to get involved with WordCamp, we've got a lot of opportunities. And you keep thinking, oh, I kept saying that, but like that they don't mean me. Like, they really do mean you. You are the one they mean, right? And if you're an organizer and you're like, ugh, I keep saying this and nothing happens, keep it up, because you never know. Yeah. Eventually someone will take you up on it and it will be amazing. So just, keep at it.
Well, I don't want to take up too much time, but if I can add one thing, Megan, one of the greatest stories about our community is that the first year that we did WordCamp Santa Clarita, one of the people that volunteered to be on the organizing team leads a meetup out here. But he said, Joe, I saw you on stage at WordCamp Orange County, and it inspired me to volunteer. And our second year, we had one of the people that I saw speak and said, hey, you have to come and speak at WordCamp. She became one of our organizers. Another person that was in the audience became an organizer. So it's incredible. And then this year, two of those folks that were at our camp as attendees started meetups in the area. So it's the seed analogy that you mentioned, Andrea. Okay. It's like you never know who you influence, but the message and the genuineness of the message sort of is very contagious.
Yeah, absolutely.
And knowing that, of course, this year has been different. I don't know if all of our attendees really realize how big the organizing teams can be. So I don't know, Joe, if you want to share a little bit about how organizing teams are structured for WordCamps, how many people are involved in your meetup, that type of thing.
Sure. We're a tiny town, so our community is very new and growing. So we have a very small but incredibly powerful organizing team. Generally, a meetup has a number of different roles, maybe 10 to 12 roles that are responsible for putting on a camp. So you usually put out a call for organizers. We look to our meetup as sort of, they feed our organizing group, but also the people that attend our WordCamps. We make a call during our camp as well. So you ask for people to be on your team, and they perform those roles over a 6-month planning cycle. Generally, most WordCamps have a 6-month planning cycle. They'll assign you a mentor, and you'll work with that person towards achieving your goal of putting on a camp.
And Michelle, I'm curious, like piggybacking on that, how many people are because you're still leading a meetup in Rochester. How many people or how many roles are available for meetup leadership or participation in a meetup typically?
Yeah, so it depends on how many people want to be involved. So if I'm the only one this month who's kind of taken the lead because everybody else's in life is happening, then I run with it. If other people are like, hey, I'd like to present, or can I send out those emails, or can I have one person that stepped up and said, I'd love to just like get it all organized for you and find all the space and do all that. And I was like, oh my gosh, you are like, you fell from heaven for me to get all of this, to be like this person who's doing all of the groundwork, so to speak. And now she organizes once a month, we do co-working. So we have a full day of co-working in Rochester, and right now it's literally online, So it's like we just have our windows open all day and like, hey, by the way, did you all see such and such, kind of thing.
Oh, nice.
Like, what do you think of the block editor? I mean, all of these things that come up. So it really depends on the month. It depends on how many people want to be involved. If somebody said to me, hey, I want to, organize the one for next month, I'd be like, oh my gosh, thank you. Because we don't have a topic yet, that kind of.
And just to check an assumption I have, are all of those people, Joe and Michelle, are all of those people developers? Like, are all the people who help with organizing events? Is there like some technical skill that's required?
Well,
We have one person who's a developer, but that's not what her skills are used for.
Oh,
So,
okay.
and I would echo that. I would say we have a couple that are developers, but our volunteers they span the gamut. We have one person that's an artist. She works in the fashion industry, Shannon, but she was trained. She has really incredible financial skills, so she volunteered to
Great.
do our budget.
Oh,
So it was an odd connection. We had someone that's a leader in the accessibility community, Sumner. So she took a lead organizer role and dealt with our speakers. And then we had someone from the WooCommerce community, Sean, who's been there both years, who runs his own meetup, but he's a developer. So we have a range of folks. So that balances out the team. And I think the message that I always try to get across at our meetups is that we can do anything. We need to customize what we do in our community for what we need to learn. So that usually resonates with folks because they see themselves in what they want to do in our meetup.
but yeah, basically, what is your skill? What is your talent? We'll use it.
Mm-hmm.
We'll find a way to incorporate it.
That note about customization is super key right now. Obviously, having an online WordCamp is a little bit of an innovation from what we normally have. I'm interested how each of you see maybe the WordPress community changing or the way we do events changing as we move forward past this pandemic.
Yeah, so one of the things that I've noticed is that we have a bigger reach in that we can include more people. When you have an in-person meetup, everybody has to drive to that location. And so when we have our online meetups, we have people joining from other countries, other states for sure. And one of the things that we'd like to do moving forward is to hybrid it so that when we are meeting in person again, we're also broadcasting so that people for accessibility, whether they literally can't physically come because of distance or because of any other reason, they're putting their kids to bed or whatever it is, they can still attend meetups and be part of the whole process.
I think for me, what's really exciting have been the last 2 months in the community. We were the second WordCamp to go online, and as Michelle mentioned, the reach is totally different, but it's incredibly exciting. One of the folks that volunteered for our WordCamp, he's volunteering for your camp, Ahmed, is in Bangladesh. We're getting such a wider range of folks. We have guests that come into our meetups that are located in other cities that would probably never happen as easy if it wasn't for these conditions. And I think what's most exciting is that you see the community evolving and changing based on an extraordinary circumstance, but it's rising to the occasion, which is incredibly awesome. So I think right now is pretty awesome. I'm always volunteering for other camps, and I just want to do more. I actually went to a meetup in Milwaukee last week, just because it was up I get up very early, and it was happening at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I was like, hey, let me join in. So I think that's what's exciting, is to see where the community takes it at this point.
And we're such a strongly connected, like the WordPress community has a lot of connection points, right? Which makes a community highly resilient. And so it's really been exciting to see, and WordPress people are optimists and innovators anyway, right? Like you don't come to WordPress and stick around because you like to do things the way they're run out of the box, right? Open source attracts people who want to kind of get their fingers into it. And so like I knew that we would have innovators and people who are maybe kind of tired of the same old get sparked with the idea of like, oh, well, now what can we do? Needs must, and like there's opportunity there. I'm really excited about the potential that online connection has to kind of reduce barriers to participation from voices that are traditionally marginalized in technology. There can be a much stronger barrier for women and people of color to take leadership in and especially to like speak and be leads in communities due to different requirements on their time and different kind of financial situations and things like that. But like the nice thing about getting together online is that the time commitment can be lower, and sometimes the intimidation factor can reduce, right? Because it's just you and your computer, kind of like it has been for a while. And so I'm really excited about seeing local meetups like finally being able to convince that one shy person that has the amazing case study to share it with the group now that they don't have to stand up in front of 30 people, right? And then get that voice and take it around the world. Don't tell them that if they're scared. Just tell them. But that's the potential, right? Like our platform for raising up the voices of people doing fascinating things with WordPress in our small communities. Like, I mean, Megan mentioned, or who was it? Oh, Joe, you mentioned that like you had, Santa Clarita is a small town. Well, Rochester isn't huge. Kent is small. Like we're made of small communities. And one of the kind of myths I like to bust in WordPress community organizing talk is like, oh, well, if we're not a LA or a New York or a Miami, like we're nowheresville. Untrue. Like we are our DNA, our foundational unit is the small community that just leans on all the people who have a couple hours to give. And though all of us are deep dives and lifers, right? Like not everyone is. You can do
that's
it.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's fine. And like it's not like, oh, you're not serious. Like it's like, oh yay, this person has 2 hours a month to give and they're willing to do it, looking for venues and finding spaces for us to meet or figuring out the tech for our online event, right?
If I could step in for just a second, say we sound like angels right now. Like, look at all we do. But I want to bust a little bit of a myth there too, right? So Joe's giving us wings. But if I could bust a little bit of it isn't all altruistic. I don't want to, I know if you think that I just give because I love to give, that is true. However, I get back so much more too, right? So I'm not only in it to just like bleed myself out, I'm replenished by the community. I have a job that pays me actual money so I can pay my actual bills because of WordPress, right? So like I got my job at GiveWP because I networked my buns off at WordCamp Ottawa. And at the end I said, if you're ever hiring, yours is the one company that I'd give up my agency for. Well, by January, I was working for GiveWP. So, there's opportunities to make money. There's opportunities, like swag. I have more mugs and t-shirts and hats than anybody. Like I could literally like stock a kitchen and a wardrobe just out of WordPress. I am not in it for the swag, but I love the swag. Not gonna lie.
Well, and Joe, like I agree with Michelle. Like there are immense like career opportunities available in this community. But Joe, I know you have like a literal day job. So like what replenishes you about this work?
Mm-hmm.
Well, not to disparage the job that is, afforded me some benefits. It's a totally different environment. We're one of the largest transit agencies in the world. It's a big business. It's run by a board of politicians. It's very political. It's very corporate cutthroat. And WordPress, totally, like Michelle said, it replenishes me because I'm naturally a giver. I always share this story with my family and they get upset. But when I was a freshman in college, I went home for my birthday. My birthday is always on Labor Day weekend. So I figured my present was I got to go back to school for my birthday, which was an underhanded joke. But one birthday when I came home for my first year in college, my mom made me a chocolate cake with chocolate icing. And we invited all the kids that were around. And I had a small piece and I said, let's just give everything else away. And I remember my mom was like, don't give away all your cake. But to me, it's natural that I give away the things that I don't need. So the community is a way for me to do that. And I really enjoy doing that. I really get a satisfaction out seeing how other folks grow into the community. Yeah, it's incredible for me. It's such a difference, but it balances me out because I need that excitement in the office, and you have to push to deadlines. But in the community, you'd have the same things, but you get so much more back in exchange.
Absolutely.
Completely agree.
It seems like we have a lot of folks in our chat who are already organizing meetups, which is pretty cool. We do have a couple questions about what one is about how to promote meetups, and the other is kind of how do you handle when you have different audience that you cater your topics to? Michelle, do we want to start with you?
Sure. So we promote both through meetup.com. So we're, pushing messages out through there. We also have a website for our community. So it's wprochester.com. And, you can connect through to our Slack channel, our Facebook group, and our Facebook group is fairly active. So we promote our events there as well. And then we put them out on local things like the Craigslist calendar, and local tech calendars, because why not? People will find things that way. So there's lots of free ways that you can promote your event. We make sure that every topic can hit at least the middle of the crowd. So sometimes it may be a little more challenging for people because it's a little more technical than they're used to, but that's a growth potential. And also, if they don't want to attend that month because it's not a topic of interest, that's okay too. But a lot of people choose to attend because they want to hear, and then they also want to be involved in the conversation that happens afterwards. And sometimes it's a little lower. It might be about marketing or how to incorporate social media into your website. And the developers are like, oh my God, that's so boring. But they still come because they want to talk and they want to hear and they want to do those things too. So we really do aim for the middle because we have one meetup a month and it's for everybody. And so we try to incorporate as much as we can to include as many people as possible.
And I think as your meetup grows and evolves, I know we have social media channels, we have a web page. We market there heavily, but I'm a SiteGround ambassador. So when I'm speaking at a WordCamp, I usually speak on community topics, and I always mention get involved with our community, get involved with your community. And I think what appeals to a lot of folks in our community is LA's a commuting town, and everyone's at least 40 minutes away from everything. So I said, hey, we don't need to drive downtown or to Pasadena for a meetup. Join up here. Mm-hmm. And as your community grows and as your meetup grows, what's happened in Southern California, a lot of the meetups have split. So they may have started as a general meetup, but then they've got a developer version or a beginner's version or a design version. So you always have the potential to grow and address specific audiences. But I know for us, we try to mix it up. We'll have a happiness bar. We have our own version of a happiness bar at our meetup for each, for the beginners, but then we try to bring in folks that address advanced topics. And so we just try to mix it up. I think having variety in your meetup and not getting locked into one type of meetup will grow your audience.
I completely agree.
And for anybody who doesn't know what a happiness bar is, Joe, tell us what a happiness bar is.
Well, at each WordCamp, if you have questions and you need someone to talk to, there are some great volunteers with great knowledge that are at that WordCamp, and they could talk to you about your question and walk you through it. A lot of folks deal with technical support or are on phone with support. It's not that kind of thing. These people are invested in WordPress and they really want to help you. So it's a great opportunity to learn. And I think during WordCamp Kent, you have the same opportunity to discuss topics and ask questions. So it's great.
Yeah. There's also a format that came out of, I'm going to forget, Ahmedabad, I believe, in India, that I love for meetup organizers. If anybody ever wants to try it, they have kind of a longer one meetup a month that starts with a beginner topic. Then they have, so maybe that for like 45 minutes, and they have a good solid 30 to 45 minutes of just like mingling time. And then they have a developer focused topic at the end. And so you can kind of pick, it's like a Neapolitan ice cream. You can kind of like, if you only like strawberry and vanilla, you can come for the beginning and the middle. If you only like chocolate and vanilla, you can come for the middle and the end. You can just come for the end, whatever. And I love that. Like if you don't have enough organizers to have like a beginner event series and a developer event series, and you want to bring it all together, which frequently in small towns you don't, like that kind of stripe approach can be really effective.
The meetup casserole.
It is. 7-layer dip of Meetup.
No, I like the
There you go.
edges of the casserole because it's crunchy.
There you go. We have some crunchy people in some of our meetups.
I get crunchy sometimes.
Oh, me too. Me too.
I get crunchy. It seems a lot of the people are digging the online format, at least because of the reach that it can have. We have a comment from Rahul about the potential to have a couple online WordCamps per year. And we actually have Olga saying first world WordCamp. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
That would be a real feat of asynchronous communication.
Yes.
I'm not saying I can do it.
The potential for a 24-hour WordCamp exists in that.
Yeah.
Like 24 hours of WordPress, like 24 hours Le Mans race. I do think it's a great idea because for our camp, we initially postponed it. It was going to be the first weekend of April. And we got the go-ahead after San Antonio went live. And we only had 19 days to do it. And I talked to our organizing team and we were like, do we want to do this? We could easily postpone it till next year. And they wanted to do it. And I think the initiative the effort that was put into doing it in those 19 days, I think anything's possible. I may be crazy, but to do something on that scale,
yeah, but Joe, crazy gets stuff done, Joe. Crazy gets stuff done.
Yeah. And I think we all work remotely in general. We communicate
people do.
Slack with the different project management tool. I think it would take, like you said, Andrea, asynchronous, a whole bunch of organization in terms of that. But I think it's possible.
To give credit where credit is due, the idea of 24 hours of programming was initially executed for an online event by WordSesh back in the day, like way back. It isn't a 24-hour event anymore, but it is. That's how it was begun. And if I try to credit people who did that at first, I will miss somebody, so I won't. But go look it up. But yeah, I mean, I think there's immense potential to like bring us all together on a same event. But I really think also like centralization doesn't always serve us, right? Decentralization and like and recruiting those people who didn't think that they could be a leader is really one of our strengths, right? It creates a foundation that's incredibly stable and strong. And then it keeps replenishing our kind of pipeline of leaders. If you are disturbed by what's happening in the world today and you're trying to figure out like how can I gain the skills or grow my skills to help the world move in a direction that is more toward collaboration, more toward transparency and growth and inclusion, like this program has a place for you. You have the opportunity to learn to lead in this community. And I think that's one of the things that for me is incredibly compelling about kind of like doing big things with our small groups, right? Is because those big things spread throughout the world. You have the potential of learning, and we will give you the time and the opportunity to learn how to do outreach, how to bring people together, how to unite people around a common mission, and then how to execute a plan. And then I hope, like what gets me out of bed every morning is the idea that people will then take that and keep it going and bring that to other places that need inclusion and transparency and collaboration and kind of keep our world moving in a positive direction.
If I can piggyback on that, if you are somebody in your small community who's thinking about starting up a meetup or wants to start a WordCamp or anything, you don't have to do it alone either. Not only do you have, Andrea and the whole community team, but you literally have everybody in WordPress who's ever done something like that. Contact us. Every single one of us. I know I'm speaking for Joe. I didn't even have to ask him. You want to know how we do something in our camp or our meetup? You can message, my DMs are always open. I'm available. I'll answer any question. If I don't know the answer, I'm going to refer you to somebody like Joe, who's done it in a different way and knows how to do it. So there is a humongous network here to support you.
To finish your thought, that's how I sort of work. I love talking to people, and for our camp, I reached out over Twitter to someone I met indirectly at WordCamp US. I saw him on stage, William Jackson, down in Jacksonville, and I said, "Hey, I respect what you do so much. Why don't you come out to Santa Clarita?" He was going to physically come, but he came anyway. So just ask someone in the community. Yeah. Most people will say yes, and that's what's incredible. Yeah. And you can grow your meetup that way.
Yeah. Our secret sauce is that we have no secrets. Like the secret sauce is that everybody wants you to succeed. If your goal is to help people, lift people up, empower people, and encourage people to work together in a transparent way.
Yeah, if the secret is transparency is the new trending hashtag, that'd be awesome.
Peter is saying he'd love to see a regular meetup organizer online meetup, and said perhaps I'll look into it. Are there resources that you all would recommend, especially you, Andrea, for people who are looking to up their organizer game?
There definitely is. In fact, the community team has recently kicked off a new initiative called Training Tuesday, where new training and content focused specifically on event organizing and community leadership will be published every Tuesday, starting, I believe, in June. So it's a good time. So go to make.wordpress.org/community and check that out. I believe the program is super, super interesting. There's everything from like the nitty gritty of like how to find a venue to the more abstract. I believe I'm doing a conflict de-escalation workshop sometime in July. And so like there's a lot of opportunity to learn more on that blog and in that group.
Awesome. And then for those who are just looking to attend a meetup, maybe they haven't been to one yet, where should they be going for that?
I always tell people to go to meetup.com. Meetup.com, you can search for the term WordPress. You can put within a certain mile of where you live so you can find your local meetup. And you can always use hashtags on Twitter as well to find online WordPress meetups. And, just ask in any community, ask on Twitter, ask anywhere, and we're going to help you find a local meetup for you or the meetup that meets your needs.
And the other thing I would tag onto that too is in your WordPress dashboard, a few updates back, all the events appear right in your dashboard. So every time you log in, it's like right in your face. So that's how and one of the tips that I talk about in my presentations on stage is when I travel with WordPress, which is kind of corny to say, but I always click on the pencil. The very first WordCamp that I spoke at, WordCamp Chicago, my son is a recently graduated student from Michigan State University, and I was going back to pick him up in April, and I clicked the pencil and I put East Lansing, Michigan in, and WordCamp Chicago popped up. And I decided to submit a presentation talk. So I always tell folks, you'll find meetups that way, you'll find WordCamps that way, and it's a great way to get involved, and it's right in front of your face.
And online events now show up in that dashboard widget, so you can see events that you may not be able to join people physically, but you can still join them online.
Andrea, if somebody looks at the widget, they look at meetup.com, they've done their research, and there's not a local meetup, and they decide they want to start one, what is the first step to start on a local meetup?
They should go to make.wordpress.org/community and take a look at, there's a Meetup Organizer Handbook. And in that handbook, they can read all about the program. And then there's an application to to start organizing a meetup. So you'll fill out a short application. Volunteers will vet and reach out to you. You'll get an orientation and some tips and tricks, and then you'll be good to go.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If folks want to reach out to Andrea, Michelle, or Joe, they can do so either on our Slack channel or via their social media. Check out their sites. And I want to thank the three of you so much for being here today and sharing all your wisdom with our, I would say our local community, but it's really not local. They're all over. So thank you so much.
Thank you for asking.
It was a pleasure to be here.
Awesome.
Absolutely.